Three, two, one. Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Chung Willoughby. For those of you that don't know, I am the founder of The Art of Good, a ministry of agape love, an organization committed to mastering the art of humanity through inclusion. I am Client Zero, as well as a founder. This is my journey from marginalized to momentum to mogul. And when I say mogul, I don't necessarily mean a financial mogul, but I mean someone that has successfully crossed over from spiritual wellness, which I am spiritually well, to being able to effectively manipulate the challenges and things that happen in this world, right? And my thing is that if I can make this a viable program for myself, it will be definitely a viable program for others. And maybe it may be something that will help support and encourage you, right? So today, I just want to take you on that journey through firsthand experiences, advocacy, and systemic challenges. We'll explore not just my fight, but the broader fight, and that's the one that affects countless marginalized voices seeking access, dignity, and representation. If you get a chance, go back and watch the video about labels. I know the audio is really bad, but most of y'all are in nice houses with big screen TVs. Turn it on full blast and put it on the TV. Put it on TV, you'll be able to hear it. As the Art of Good moves towards reincorporation, it is a very long journey. We are expanding initiatives like our growth program, which is basically taking individuals such as myself from a base level of growth where basically you're just setting goals, being resilient, looking for opportunities, demonstrating wisdom and work, which means that you're not just taking a job just because you ain't got no job or just to, impress other people, but you're being wise in the choices that you're making, and you're also getting to the root causes so that you can have sustainability, right? We'll talk more about that later. I know that's a lot. And truth and time management. We're not giving our times to any and everybody because, society has you believing that everybody's better than you. They ain't. They're not. So we're being very picky about who, what, when, and where we give our time to and allow to take our time from us. And we're looking for partners that are honest. And growth partners are anyone that basically has a love for people and wants to grow and develop people. You could be another marginalized person. You could be a council member, a board of commissioners member. You could be a teacher. It's just endless. Whoever you are is good enough. You just have to love people. And that's the thing that's really missing in this world is love. They've been saying it since the 60s and 70s, and it's still true today, right? So, again, we're going from that base level to that elevated level of growth where we're no longer just setting goals. We are actually accomplishing goals, and we have some level of growth. We're no longer being resilient where we're, toughening up to fight those heartaches that come, but we're being radiant. We actually are now in a position where we can empower other people, right? And we're going from where we're just looking for opportunities where we've taken those opportunities and transferring them into some level of ownership, right? And we're going from where we're exhibiting and demonstrating wisdom and work to we've actually been wise, obtained some good work, right? And now we have some level of wealth. And we're going from situations where um, we're demonstrating truth and time management and not giving our time to any and everybody just because they exist and because there may be perception of us. But we've now come to a point where we've developed some great relationships, and now we have a top tier reputation because of that. We've connected ourselves with people that are in alignment with our goals and our vision and our values. So if you see Maria Chung Willoughby, no, I ain't got no friends. I only have growth partners. So if you're not a growth partner, what you doing? You know what I'm saying? So, and the last portion of that is we're going from a situation where we're just looking for those honest growth partners to be honest with us and to develop us to a point where we've overcome that and we're not desperately trying to prove ourselves to everybody, but now we have some level of health and we're able to feed back into, because health is my thing, into our growth partners and provide a healthy individual relationship, a healthy community relationship, nationwide, worldwide relationship. We're all connected. But anywho, oh, so if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or pushed aside in spaces that are meant for all, this conversation is definitely for you. Those of you that don't know, specifically for people that have been bullied, whether you've encountered corporate bullying, which is a lot of reasons people are unemployed, unemployed as far as worldly standards. As long as you're living and breathing on this earth, you are doing work. It took something for you to get up and get out to wherever you went to today. So God bless you for that. Um, yeah. So if you've been bullied, whether it's corporate bullying, peer bullying, adult bullying, domestic violence, it's all a form of someone's trying to exert power over you or make you feel uncomfortable in your space, right? Okay. So if you've ever experienced that, which eventually leads to being victimized by the criminal justice system, okay, and I have my story, and I'm actually starting a newsletter for a prison ministry. I just have so just have to have time to do everything, and I do want to showcase my story because I think it's a good one. It fits into all of this perfectly, and I'm sure there are many people that have experienced the same, right? So yeah, so if you've ever experienced untraditional housing as a result of this, some people don't know it, but you can be court ordered to a homeless shelter. You can be court ordered to homelessness. You could have a nice house and be paying all your bills, but they can court order you to a homeless shelter. There's a lot of things in this world that we don't know. And not only that, but this is something else I didn't know. They can order that you're not able to come back to a city or state or go to a city, go home or anything like that. And you may not have a bad reputation there, but it's just maybe they don't want you there, period. So, but anyhow, and going forward from that, you can be impacted with emotional and mental health. We're human, so we have emotions. So those things do happen. And the important thing is to stay connected, right? So anyhow, moving on. So this is the story of one individual's journey through institutional bias, the fight for dignity, and the pursuit of an organization built on reclaiming humanity. Okay, so here's the story, you guys. Synagogues are meant to be places of discovery, where knowledge is free, inclusion is guaranteed, and community is fostered. Places where individuals from all walks of life can gather, work, learn, and contribute. But what happens when these spaces, intended for inclusivity, quietly become centers of discrimination? Yet for some, these spaces present unforeseen barriers, subtle exclusions, passive resistance, and silent biases create obstacles that challenge the very foundation of public access. For those working towards change, navigating these environments is more than a personal challenge. It's a fight for dignity and equal opportunity. Sounds familiar? Right? Same thing, different face. My daddy always said when they get rid of racism, it'll be something else. So, introducing to you socioeconomic classism, another way to marginalize. Denied without denial, the slow erosion of inclusion. For the past 8 months, Miriam Channon Willow has been using the Bethesda Southside Synagogue as a primary workspace while rebuilding the Art of Good, a ministry of agape love, an organization dedicated to amplifying marginalized voices. But in the process, she has faced a persistent cycle of resistance, one that exposes how inclusion is necessary because exclusion can manifest in subtle, systemic ways. The obstacles range from passive resistance to active dismissal. It's one thing to understand exclusion from an academic standpoint, Miriam Willow said. It's another to see it unfold in real time, where access isn't denied outright, but chipped away piece by piece. From indirect hostility to seemingly orchestrated disruptions, the challenges became too frequent to ignore. Inconsistencies in communication made access unpredictable. Staff interactions fluctuated between indifference and hostility, with subtle but clear signals that Miriam Willow was not welcome. The synagogue's unforeseen emergency, a place in crisis or a crisis manufactured. Then came the incident with the roof. On Tuesday, May 13th, Miriam Willow arrived at the synagogue only to find it closed due to what was described as unforeseen emergency in the youth chamber. The explanation? The roof fell in. Yet, upon inspection, there was no visible damage, no construction notices, just vague messaging and restricted access. I had been in that room all day the day before, Miriam Willow said. Nothing looked wrong. Nothing felt unsafe. Community members were given little clarity, but online the closure notice gained traction. 2 likes, a few shares. What remained was an unsettling question. Was this truly an emergency or simply an excuse? A pattern of marginalization. This wasn't the first time barriers appeared in subtle ways. Another moment stood out. The Black History Month program, initially extended by Deborah Barak, a well-known community leader. Miriam Willow was invited to participate in it. It was a program celebrating African American heritage, a pivotal opportunity to promote her book and mission. The invitation seemed genuine, but clarity never followed. As preparations ramped up, communication waned. Guidelines were repeatedly requested but never provided. Her continuous efforts to acquire them were dismissed. Then, just an hour before the event, the invitation was creatively and quietly revoked. What had appeared to be a step toward moving forward was instead a calculated retreat. At first, it looked like she wanted me there, Miriam Willow said, but only perhaps to save face, so she wouldn't appear as if she was excluding me, until she found out that it didn't matter. No one else knew that I was to participate at all. If you're going to remove someone, this is how you do it, Miriam Willow explained. You make it look like an accident. You let it feel like communication was missed. But everyone involved knows exactly what happened. There wasn't any miscommunication. There was none. I had prepared extensively, Miriam Willow said. It wasn't just about the program. It was about proving that voices like mine belong. Deborah Barak, a prominent community member, initially extended the invitation, but only perhaps as a safeguard, ensuring that if word spread, it wouldn't appear as outright exclusion. What had seemed like a moment of progress soon unraveled into quiet dismissal, a slow, deliberate erosion of presence, driven not by oversight, but intent. A pattern of marginalization continued. Instances of exclusion often present themselves in ways that are difficult to prove outright, but also easy to fill. Seemingly, whenever Miriam Willow arrived, Keziah Jonah, the synagogue's branch manager, would make loud comments implying improper bathroom use, suggesting falsely that toilet paper had been excessively depleted. There was no noticeable change in supply, and no staff checked behind the boss. The remarks were unprovoked, but their implications spread quickly. Other marginalized patrons received assistance, but Miriam Willow, who carried a distinct sense of purpose, was met with open aversion. The disconnect was palpable. It was like there was an unwritten understanding, she said, that I was different, and not in a way that they welcomed. The shift in environment grew clearer when she attempted to print materials for an event. Arriving promptly at synagogue opening, ensuring she had time to prepare, she confidently greeted the staff and made her request. An unspoken alliance when silence becomes complicity. In moments where exclusion unfolds, the actions of individuals often reveal deeper alliances of reinforcement. Baruch Boaz, the assistant synagogue director, wasn't just passively observing the hostility directed at Miriam Willow. His presence subtly supported and amplified it. His tone, body language, and pointed disengagement ensured that Keziah Jonah's actions weren't isolated. They were validated. Keziah Jonah's comments, loud, dismissive, and confounded, were spoken directly in front of Baruch Boaz, yet he remained unfazed. His quiet withdrawal wasn't an act of neutrality, oh no. It was an intentional choice to avoid direct culpability while still participating in the dynamic. Boom, boom, boom. For Miriam Willow, this moment was especially jarring. As a child of immigrant parents, she had been raised in an environment where excellence, respect, and integrity were non-negotiable values. In many immigrant communities, discourtesy and exclusionary behavior were cultural violence. violent, unacceptable at any level. To witness someone from a non traditional background engaging in such behavior was not just disappointing, but a stark contradiction to the standards of dignity she had grown up with. This interaction underscored a troubling truth. Bias isn't always overt, it thrives in silence, in complicity, in the quiet reinforcement of exclusionary norms. Baruch Boaz, assistant synagogue director, promptly exited, not wanting to be present for an escalated version of Keziah Jonah's behavior where, if reported by another patron, he could be culpable. A transaction that revealed more than just change. Miriam Willow approached the front desk, prepared to print materials for her upcoming event. With efficiency in mind, she handed Keziah Jonah $20 for printing fees, expecting standard change in return. Instead, Keziah Jonah placed only $2 in quarters on the counter, an amount that seemed deliberately inconvenient. When Miriam Willow inquired about dollar bills, Keziah Jonah confirmed she had 12 available, but instead she was saving them for someone else. As Miriam Willow explained that she could not wait due to pressing schedules, Keziah Jonah rudely interrupted, loudly asserting false assumptions that only misrepresented reality, but suggested a damaging and exclusionary bias. "You'll be here all day anyway," Keziah Jonah remarked dismissively, insinuating that waiting wasn't a problem for Miriam because she simply hung around a synagogue. An exertion entirely false. Miriam Willow has spent every borrowed moment working diligently to rebuild the art of good, maximizing her time for productivity, not idleness. Absolutely not. Meanwhile, Boaz, whose tone and demeanor had previously reinforced Keziah Jonah's behavior, stood nearby. Though he left the interaction before it escalated further, his absence was intentional, choosing to avoid direct confrontation while still signaling approval of the dynamic. This moment was not just about currency, it was about power, accessibility, and the unspoken systems that dictate who is welcome and who is subtly pushed aside. Miriam Willow calmly replied, "No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I am not. I am late." The response came swift and sharp. "I do not have to give it to you." A simple transaction became a calculated insult. Exclusion in subtle forms. The erasure extended beyond the confines of the synagogue. Shortly after, Maria Willow joined a Korean language class. The synagogue stopped offering Korean lessons altogether. Her heritage, South Korean and African American, meant that fully reclaiming her first language was deeply personal. Her mother was born in Salem, South Korea, and she had spent her early years surrounded by the culture, the language, the family ties. Their family was deeply connected to both the military community and their Korean relatives, making the language and culture an integral part of her earliest years. The instructor leading the sessions could very well have been one of the cousins she grew up with during her primary years in Salem. Yet suddenly, the program was gone. Turning resistance into momentum. For marginalized individuals, barriers are often unspoken. They exist in deflections, in closed doors that don't explain why they are shut, in shifts in tone that imply difference without naming it. But for Miriam Willow, silence isn't an option. "I'm not here to appease people," Miriam Willow said. "I'm here to build something that matters." That something is the art of good, an initiative designed to ensure that inclusion isn't just a concept, but a practice. Through storytelling, advocacy, and community engagement, the organization aims to amplify voices often left unheard. Marginalization operates in ways that many will never witness. But for those on the receiving end, it's impossible to ignore. Through storytelling, advocacy, and community engagement, the organization aims to amplify voices often left unheard. Despite the barriers, Miriam Willow continues forward. Efforts are underway to formally address exclusion within the Bethesda synagogue system. A message to leadership is in the works, advocating for accountability, transparency, and fair access. Whether change comes immediately or in time remains uncertain, but the conversation has begun. Leadership is being contacted, and steps towards accountability are unfolding. Whether change comes immediately or over time remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the conversation has begun. As the challenges persist, so does the mission. So for now, Miriam Willow keeps working, challenging passive exclusion with active presence, pushing forward, insisting that communal spaces should be just that, welcoming to all, turning resistance into reform. When systemic bias surfaces, navigating it requires resilience, documentation, and advocacy. The art of good isn't just about identifying discrimination. It's about actively reclaiming sacred and communal spaces, fostering allies, and implementing actionable solutions, strategies such as community storytelling, sharing firsthand experiences to ignite awareness and drive reform, formal petitions, leveraging institutional accountability mechanisms to demand transparency. Amen, 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 amen. Expanding fellowships, building alternative spaces that uplift rather than marginalize. Yes, Lord. Through these efforts, voices once silenced are finding recognition, reshaping conversations, and laying the foundation for lasting inclusivity. Call to action. Marginalization isn't just an individual struggle, it's a societal failure that calls for collective action. Through the art of good, the mission isn't just to confront systemic barriers, it's to build new pathways where voices flourish in righteousness. Growth, y'all, growth. Not just endure in silence. Amen, amen. An unspoken struggle in public institutions. Miriam Willow remains committed to community reform, working tirelessly on her organization's reincorporation from the local synagogue, a place meant to serve all equally. She was determined to build a platform for marginalized voices, which should have been a space for productivity and inclusion, instead became a setting for institutional barriers, passive resistance, and exclusionary behavior. The indirect hostility, barriers to basic resources, and unchecked bias she encountered reflected a larger systemic issue. Despite these challenges, the founder of the Art of Good, an organization dedicating to uplifting marginalized voices, persisted. I wasn't asking for special treatment. I just wanted access without judgment, she recalled. But as access, as she quickly learned, could be denied in ways both subtle and strategic. It's a struggle familiar to marginalized voices whose presence is often met with passive resistance, exclusionary paralyses, and systemic barriers. For those seeking to create change, navigating such environments become a challenge, as well as a test of resilience. What began as a pursuit of knowledge and personal development soon became a lesson in perseverance. The mission, the art of good. Founded on the principles of inclusion, empowerment, and representation, the Art of Good, a ministry of agape love, aims to master the art of humanity by providing a voice for marginalized individuals with the core belief that change begins at the ground level. Its founder leads by example, transforming personal adversity into a blueprint for structural reform. Confronting subtle and systemic exclusion. Public synagogues should serve as sanctuaries for learning, growth, and communal support. Yet repeated encounters with discriminatory behaviors, exclusionary tactics, and silent dismissals reveal an unsettling reality. Power dynamics often dictate response accessibility. From passive-aggressive encounters to misrepresentation and denial of resources, small barriers accumulate, forcing marginalized individuals into exhausting, I told y'all working tirelessly, exhausting cycles of justifying their place in spaces meant for all. Turning resistance into reform. The Art of Good was founded on a simple yet profound principle. Everyone deserves a voice. Amen. True inclusion does not happen by chance. As you know, our goal is to master the art of humanity through inclusion and to provide a voice for the marginalized members of society, those that have been muted, try to be portrayed as dumb so that you don't speak up, marginalized, It requires intent. I have a program called Be Intentional, accountability, and structural change. It's not enough to just invite people into a space, y'all. Okay, I'm sorry. Going back to the storybook. It's not enough to just invite people to a space, the founder explained. They need to feel seen, heard, and supported in that space. Love, support, and encouragement, y'all. I say it all the time. To counter these challenges, the Art of Good takes an active approach in reshaping narratives and creating pathways for change, including public storytelling, documenting firsthand experiences that inspire collective awareness, institutional accountability, encouraging transparent policies that address exclusionary practices, community partnerships, building networks where marginalized individuals can find advocacy and support. That's what we're trying to do, y'all. It's so funny. And I'm getting off of the story again, but I did a comedy routine for a vocal performance. And, because for whatever reason that week before the performance, I was getting all kinds of things thrown at me. And I talked about how, this guy rode up on me and was like, ma'am, you want to make some change? And I asked the audience, I said, what y'all think I said, y'all? It got real quiet because they didn't know where I was going with it. One girl was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I do want to make a change. I want to make a change in the systemic barriers that exist. But anyhow, back to what I was saying. At the core of the Art of Good lies an essential question. And this is the mission to redefine inclusion, right? It's not just about saying, okay, you can come here, but we're going to treat you like garbage when you get here so you can exit, At the core of the Art of Good lies an essential question. What does it mean to truly belong? I can go to XYZ church, become a member at XYZ church, but they can make sure that I don't know anything about the events. They can make sure that I get isolated. They can make sure to say things which will, But anyways, for individuals facing institutional bias, belonging means more than having a seat at the table. Amen? It means having a voice, a platform, and an environment free from unjust barriers. The organization committing to the mastering the art of humanity through inclusion seeks to bridge that gap between inclusion and systemic change by advocating for policies that dismantle exclusionary practices. No one should have to fight for basic dignity in spaces designed for public access, the founder emphasized. By amplifying stories like these, the Art of Good hopes to drive conversations that challenge bias and encourage meaningful reform. A call to action. The responsibility of public institutions extends beyond providing services. It's about ensuring dignity, fostering inclusion, and eliminating systemic barriers. Public institutions hold a responsibility not just to provide resources, because you are public and you're getting that funding to be public, but to cultivate an atmosphere of acceptance. Without proactive measures to access discriminatory practices, these spaces risk becoming symbols of silent exclusion rather than progress. Change starts when individuals and organizations challenge outdated norms and demand accountability. All of this is so familiar, you guys. History repeats itself, and that's why, I think they're doing away with, critical race theory, because when you look at the way the methods are the same. Just the faces on the receiving end are different. Give a shout out to my daddy for that, and also to Miss Horn, my 9th grade AP English teacher in Hampton, Virginia. It's a cycle, y'all. Don't think it can't happen to you. Okay? Change starts when individuals and organizations challenge outdated norms and demand accountability. Through initiatives like mine, The Art of Good, the goal is clear. Redefine public spaces so that every voice, regardless of status, is valued. Advocacy, transparency, and documented accountability remain central in the fight against institutionalized bias. Initiatives like The Art of Good aim to ensure that no one's voice is diminished based on status, power, or perception, that every perspective, especially those often left out, is amplified and embraced. While challenges persist, one message remains clear. Voices once marginalized are rising, if only mine, demanding recognition and lasting change. That those who have historically been silenced find their rightful place at the table. I'm getting mine. About the Art of Good. The Art of Good, a ministry of agape love, is an organization dedicated to uplifting marginalized individuals, fostering inclusion, and advocating for systemic reform, even if it's just within yourself. You know, you define how others treat you, but you have to be aware first, right, of the winds, whys, hows, right, and the remedies. Self-actualization, everybody. And we do this by providing a platform for those often unheard, through vlogging, through newslettering, event attending, performances, all of that. Um, my organization strives to reshape public narratives and inspire meaningful change. Hopefully, you guys, this meant something to you and you can kind of get through it. I love you with the love of Christ. Goodbye.